I hadn't heard from my uncle in over 20 years. That's why the letter hit me like a hammer. It arrived in a weathered envelope, postmarked from Morgan's Bluff, a place I hadn't visited since I was a child. My mother used to call it, the edge of the world. A forgotten speck on the map of the Carolinas, where time seemed to rot like the salt-soaked wood of its docks. The handwriting was unmistakable. Elegant, deliberate. Uncle Virgil had been a lawyer once, before the war, before the drinking, before everything went sideways. And yet, there it was, his name in the return address, and my name on the front. Miss Evelyn Markham, it read. Not Mrs. not even Ms. He had frozen me in time, as if he hadn't missed the 2 decades that followed. I didn't open it right away. I let it sit on the kitchen table like a dead thing, leaking presence. I made tea. I vacuumed. I called my ex-husband, just to hear someone talk about something normal. But the envelope stayed put. Quiet. Waiting. When I finally slid it open, there were only 2 things inside, a short note, and a single brass key. The note read. Evelyn. If you're reading this, I'm either dead or wish I were. There are things I've done, things I couldn't bury, no matter how deep I tried to dig. You'll find the answers at the house. You have the right to know. I'm sorry. Virgil. A chill ran up my spine, and not from the autumn breeze curling through the kitchen window. The key was old, ornate. One of those heavy, Victorian-looking things that felt like it belonged in a cathedral, or a prison. A number was etched into the stem, 2C. I turned it over in my hand. And just like that, I knew, I was going back. Back to the house on the bluff. Back to the family I barely remembered. Back to secrets I never wanted to learn. The drive south. Morgan's Bluff hadn't changed much. The gas station still had the same rusted Coca-Cola sign. The general store still sold dusty candy and off-brand cigarettes. The locals still stared through you like you weren't real. As I drove up the winding hill toward the estate, the trees began to crowd in, like silent witnesses. The sky was gray, low-hanging, and indifferent. I pulled up in front of the old Markham house, a once majestic colonial draped in ivy and decay. I stood there for a long time before stepping inside. The air smelled like mold and old paper. The wallpaper was peeling. Dust danced in the air like ash. And then I heard something upstairs. A creak. A whisper. Maybe just the house settling. Or maybe not. I told myself it was nothing. That the wind was just playing tricks. But deep down, something in my blood stirred. Because I remembered what my mother used to say about this place, before she drank herself into silence. That house doesn't forget. And it never forgives. The brass key burned a little colder in my pocket as I wandered the first floor. The house had been left in a kind of suspended decay. Cobwebs hung like funeral veils. Old paintings lined the hallway, ancestors with ghost eyes that followed me no matter where I moved. The silence wasn't empty. It pressed on me, like the walls were waiting for something. Or someone. I found the door at the end of the eastern wing. Heavy oak. Brass handle. A keyhole that looked like it hadn't seen light in years. 2C, just like the key. It slid in with a satisfying click, like the house remembered. I pushed the door open slowly. Inside was a small study. Dust layered every surface like frost. A desk, a high-backed chair, and on the far wall, a tall, narrow safe. Not a modern one. This was vintage, steel gray with an ornate will lock, probably installed by my grandfather back when people still hid things in plain sight. I stepped inside. The light dimmed behind me as the door swung shut. The desk drawer opened easily. Inside, just one item, a single yellowed sheet of paper, folded 3 times. On it, scrawled in the same handwriting as the letter. The deed was never destroyed. Look where the light dies. That was it. No instructions. No signature. Just that cryptic message, and the sensation that I was being watched. I turned toward the window, but there wasn't one. Only a wall where one should have been. I stepped closer. That's when I noticed the wallpaper didn't match the rest of the room. It was newer. Less faded. Pasted over something. I pulled at a corner. The paper gave way with a soft rip, revealing wood paneling beneath. But not just paneling, there was a faint outline. A hidden door. I pressed it, and it creaked inward. Inside was a crawlspace, narrow and dark. The smell of old cedar and something else, earth, maybe. Or rot. I grabbed a flashlight from the desk drawer and crouched low. The space ran deeper than I expected, like the house had grown an extra lung. I followed the tunnel for what felt like 20 feet, until it opened into a tiny, square room, barely larger than a closet. And in the center, illuminated in the weak beam of my flashlight, sat a metal lockbox. I knelt, heart pounding. It wasn't locked. I lifted the lid. Inside, photographs. Dozens of them. Some black and white. Others old Polaroids, curled at the edges. All of the same thing. A hill. A tree. A small white cross. The photos were labeled in ink. North Pasture. Markham family plot. 1953. Reburial site. Don't dig. Don't tell. Underneath the stack was a small envelope marked confidential, for Virgil only. I opened it. Inside, a deed. To the house. To the land. But not in my uncle's name. The owner listed. Raymond M. Markham. My grandfather. Who was supposed to be buried in Morgan's Bluff Cemetery, over 50 years ago. So why the hell was this document dated 6 years ago? And who was the witness? The name at the bottom was shaky, but legible. Evelyn Markham. Me. Except I'd never signed this. I'd never seen it. Never even been back here in 6 years. Unless someone forged my name. Or. Unless this wasn't a deed at all. But a warning. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The photographs lay spread across the desk in the hidden study, each one like a whisper from the dirt. I studied them again and again, looking for something I'd missed, a clue, a sign, anything that might explain why my signature appeared on a document I'd never seen. Why my dead grandfather had reappeared in the records. Why someone was going to such great lengths to bury this other version of the truth. But by morning, one thing was clear. I had to see that hill. The North Pasture wasn't exactly on the property maps anymore, at least not the official ones. But I remembered it from when I was a kid. We weren't allowed to go past the barbed wire fence back then. My uncle always said it was soggy, dangerous land. Said it was full of ticks, snakes, and memories we didn't need digging up. Now I understood why. I threw on boots, grabbed the flashlight, and took a shovel. Not because I expected to use it, but because the photos made it clear. Someone already had. The sun was climbing as I reached the fence. Rusted wire curled like vines. Beyond it, the land dipped slightly, then rose into a low, lonely hill crowned by a single gnarled oak. The same tree from the photographs. It stood exactly where I remembered it, and where I didn't remember ever seeing a cross. But there it was. Small. White. Weather-worn. I pushed through the tall grass and approached. The wooden cross was wedged deep into the earth, no name carved, just the year 1953 burned into the wood. The same year Raymond Markham supposedly died. I started to dig. At first, just to see. To confirm there was something beneath. Maybe a time capsule. Maybe nothing. But then, the metal hit. Clank. A box. No, wider. I scraped away more soil, fingers trembling, until I saw it. A coffin. Old, rotten in parts, but unmistakable. I stepped back, heart in my throat. And then I saw it. In the grass behind me, footprints. Fresh ones. Someone else had been here. Recently. And worse, they were gone now. Or hiding. I spun around, shovel raised. Nothing but the rustle of wind through the grass. And a voice. Faint, female. Like a breath on the back of my neck. He didn't want to go. He begged me not to do it. I froze. No one there. Just the wind. But that voice. It wasn't memory. It wasn't imagination. It was real. I turned to the hill again, and the cross was gone. Gone. Vanished like a mirage. But the hole I'd dug was still there. And so was the coffin. Except now. The lid was open. And it was empty. I ran. Down the hill, through the pasture, legs burning, lungs on fire. Every instinct screamed at me to leave, to get away from that empty coffin and that disembodied voice. But the truth? I didn't run because I was afraid. I ran because I recognized the voice. It was hers. My grandmother's. Except, she died before I was born. Back at the house, everything felt off. The air was too still. The clocks had all stopped at 3:17. And in the hallway, one of the picture frames was smashed on the floor, the one with the whole family, taken in '92. Except, my grandfather wasn't in it anymore. His face had faded from the print, like someone had erased him from history. Or tried. I made my way to the bathroom, needing to splash cold water on my face. That's when I saw it. In the mirror. Behind me. Her. Wearing a pale blue dress, the one I'd only seen in old black and white photos, standing so still, so silent, just inches from my back. I spun around. Nothing. But in the mirror, she was still there. Not moving. Just watching. Her lips moved. But only in the reflection. Find the other deed, before he does. And then. Crack. The mirror shattered from the inside out, like something had punched through it trying to get out. I didn't sleep that night either. Instead, I tore through the house. Every drawer, every cabinet, every locked chest in the attic. I dug through the basement, the barn, the crawl space under the porch. Hours passed. Morning came. Then noon. Then evening again. And then, beneath a loose board under the kitchen sink, I found it. A box. Wooden, carved with strange symbols I didn't recognize. Inside. A faded photo of my grandmother holding a baby. Not my father. A lock of hair tied with red thread. And a second deed. Handwritten. Signed. Notarized. The date? August 17, 1953. The same day Raymond Markham died. And the name listed as the true inheritor. Elizabeth Markham. My grandmother. Not her husband. Not my father. Her. The door slammed upstairs. Heavy footsteps. Someone else was here. And they weren't alone. The footsteps grew louder. Measured. Deliberate. Each one thudded like the ticking of a countdown I didn't want to reach zero. I backed away from the kitchen, holding the deed like it could somehow protect me. The box lay open behind me, its strange contents humming with a low vibration I swore I could feel in my teeth. And then I saw him. At the top of the stairs. An old man. Tall. Gaunt. Dressed in a threadbare brown suit and tie, with hair slicked back like it was still 1953. But it was his eyes that froze me, flat, gray, and completely empty. Like someone had scooped out his soul and left the shell walking around. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he smiled. "You shouldn't have come back, boy." I bolted for the front door. He didn't follow. Didn't need to. The house had changed. Rooms looped back on themselves. The front hallway fed into the basement. The pantry door opened to a brick wall. I turned into the living room, and came back into the kitchen. Trapped. Like the house itself didn't want me to leave. Like he controlled it now. Somehow, I ended up in the attic. I didn't remember climbing the stairs, but I was there, covered in cobwebs and dust. The only light came from a single window, cracked and yellowed with age. Beneath it stood a rocking chair. And in it, my grandmother. But not the way I'd seen her in old photos. Younger. Fiercer. Wearing a red shawl. Her eyes sharp as flint. And she spoke without opening her mouth. "He forged it. The deed. Your grandfather took what was mine, what should have been yours. He died. But he didn't leave. He stayed. Bound to this house. To that paper." She pointed. To the floorboards beneath the rocking chair. I pried them up with shaking hands. Another box. Inside, a third deed. Burned at the edges. Nearly unreadable. But at the bottom was a signature I recognized from dozens of old birthday cards and Christmas letters. My mother's. The inheritance had been hers. But she never claimed it. Because she never knew. A voice boomed from below. "I warned you. This was never yours. The Markham name died with me, and you will, too." The house trembled. Boards cracked. Lights flickered on for the first time in years. I knew I had one shot. I ran back down, the real deed in one hand, the forged one in the other. In the living room, I found the old fireplace, the one everyone said hadn't worked since the 60s. I tossed the forged deed in and lit a match. The flames roared to life. Screams echoed through the walls. Not mine. His. I collapsed outside just as the sun rose. Smoke curled from the chimney. Inside, the house had gone still. No footsteps. No whispers. No shifting walls. Just silence. And a new name on the mailbox. Mine. 3 months later, I still hadn't moved into the house. Oh, the paperwork was mine. The newly recorded deed bore my name, signed and notarized by a lawyer who looked at me like I was either incredibly lucky or completely cursed. Maybe both. But every time I set foot on the porch, something made me stop. A chill in my spine. The faint scent of tobacco smoke, even though no one had smoked in there for decades. Still, I kept coming back. Something unfinished pulled at me. Like the house hadn't given up all its secrets yet. It started with the phone call. An old man's voice. "Your mother knew. She just chose to forget. Check the record vault in Harlan County. Box 42B. Then the line went dead. The next morning, I was at the courthouse in Harlan. The clerk blinked when I asked for box 42B. "That one ain't been opened in years," she said. "Last signature on it was, huh. Well, I'll be damned. It's your mother's." She handed it over with a trembling hand. Inside, a dusty manila folder. A photograph. A letter. And a cassette tape. The letter was addressed to me. But it had been written decades ago, judging by the faded ink and the old-fashioned handwriting. "If you're reading this, it means the house brought you back. I never told you about my father. Not the truth. He wasn't just cruel, he was dangerous. He manipulated the will. Took what belonged to your grandmother. Turned the whole town against her. When she tried to expose him, he threatened to lock her away. Said she was unstable. Delusional. But she wasn't. She saw what he really was. The photo was of Raymond Markham. Standing in the yard. Smiling. Next to a man I didn't recognize, until I looked closer. The face was almost identical to mine. The cassette tape clicked as I played it. It was grainy. Old. But unmistakable. My mother's voice. Tired. Cautious. But determined. This is my statement, in case anything happens to me. My father forged the documents after my mother died. He told me the land wasn't mine. That I was just a girl and should marry well instead. But I kept one copy. The real deed. Hidden in the attic. If you're listening, it means you found it. Burn the fake one. Set her free. Set us free. And whatever you do, never trust anyone who says they're from the Markham family. Not anymore. Not after what he did to us. Back at the house, I walked through every room like it was the first time. The air was different now. Lighter. No whispers in the walls. No thumping on the stairs. Only silence, and that silence finally felt peaceful. I found the last clue in the basement. An old filing cabinet behind a rusted water heater. Inside, hundreds of documents. Land agreements. Purchase orders. Bribes. My grandfather had bought off judges. Changed names. Swapped dates. Built an empire on deceit. The Markham legacy was poisoned from the beginning. But one envelope stood out. A trust fund. Unclaimed. Left to my mother. Still intact. Worth over $3. 2 million. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just sat in that basement and laughed until my throat hurt. After all these years, the ghosts hadn't been here to scare me. They were trying to tell me the truth. And now, they could finally rest. That night, I lit a fire in the fireplace. Not to destroy anything this time. But to honor it. The deed was real now. The money was mine. And the name on the mailbox still read. Nathaniel Blake. No more Markhams. No more secrets. Only me, and the long road of rebuilding ahead. Derelict House, the end.